Hello, everyone. Officially, I'm Mihe. I work for Line Zero. Welcome to the Make an Impact Gender Equity in the Workplace webinar. I'm here with our three panelists, amazing leaders who genuinely care about gender equity and diversity. Christine, Era, Mandy, thank you very much for joining us. Okay, so we have just 30 minutes together, so let's get right to it. Okay, so the first question that I'd love to ask all of you panelists, gender diversity initiatives so far that you've been part of or you have led, experience that brought some good results in terms of morale, culture, business outcome. Would you like to share, please? Mandy, do you want to go first?
Sure. I will say I've been really fortunate to work for an organization that has a really high percentage of female leaders and have been here for almost 20 years. So it's been really great to experience it firsthand. It's created a really strong culture of that sharing ideas. So we've had informal groups and we've had formal groups. One of the things that we've gotten the most lift from is a formal mentoring program that we have. And it's not exclusively for females, but it allows us an opportunity to very deliberately and carefully put some of our female leaders with those who are maybe newer in their career or just coming into the industry, and seeing that impact on overall tenure for those employees, job role performances, and then their career trajectory has been incredibly satisfying and really gratifying. We're in the process now of finalizing a new campaign around additional diversity, equity, inclusion here shortly that focuses not just on gender, but on race and socioeconomical backgrounds. So I'm really excited about that. And I think that'll continue to help us to drive the change.
Oh, very cool. Thank you. Christine.
Yeah, sure. So a little bit like Mandy, our organization is actually 3/4 women. So we have 70% women in our senior roles and a lot of women leaders and predominantly women. So a lot of what we do isn't necessarily exclusive to gender diversity. But some of the things, us too, we're just actually kicking off a mentor-mentee program for marginalized groups. So we're excited about that. But we do have internship programs that have been very successful. We also I do something that we're going to try. We've done it in New York. We're doing it here now, called New to Publishing. And so we really try to get to different communities and women to think about publishing and enter publishing. So that gets a lot of positive morale, and we actually get our employees really deeply involved in the process. And I guess the last thing we do is that editors specifically actually take young students under their wing. And that is a wonderful source, obviously, of talent going forward, but it's also just a great way to give back to the publishing community.
Oh, amazing. Era, how about you?
Yeah, sure. Actually, a quick introduction. So I'm based out of London, and I work with Facebook, and specifically within the workplace team at Facebook. For Facebook, actually, diversity and inclusion is a company-wide priority. And I've been fortunate to actually lead a task force within the workplace team that really focuses on finding candidates from diverse backgrounds at the very top of the funnel, and really making sure that we are able to support them in going through that process when they're entering, say, a big tech organization. So there are a couple of initiatives that we've done as part of that. So particularly, like I said, the pillar is called Find. We have other initiatives on growing and keeping diverse candidates, but I'm very passionate personally about making sure that we bring many more diverse candidates to begin with. So a couple of things that we've done is really do deep dive sessions on referral campaigns and talent drives, so that you really sort of, make sure that everybody within the team and the organization is empowered and incentivized to sort of, refer candidates from diverse backgrounds. And then through the talent drives, what we really do is we try and match potential candidates with people who've been with Facebook for a while, so that we can support these prospective candidates through the interview process in a more informal fashion, which is very different from when you're talking to a recruiter, for example, because they obviously still have to be unbiased across all candidates. So that, I think, has been super helpful, and especially in today's world where you can't visit offices and can't get that feeling, it's even more important to sort of hear from someone's experience. And then the other thing that we are doing is also making sure that and managers particularly are taking the inclusive hiring training that we've put together, because as you all are aware, we have biases, conscious and unconscious. So just making sure we are equipping people, leaders and managers with the required resources so that they are keeping inclusive hiring top of mind is super critical. So that's actually there are two examples that I think have made a real difference when we think about how to find diverse candidates.
That's very cool. Thank you. Thank you for those examples. One of the questions that we already got from the attendees through the LinkedIn event group that we created was, in a male-dominant, especially in a male-dominant industry, what type of things that we can do to attract more diverse talent? So Era, what you just described, that answers the question. So amazing. And yeah, mentorship, I guess that we keep hearing that, right? Mentorship is important for career growth, and especially more underrepresented groups. And Mandy and Kristen, your story confirms that. Okay, so the next question is, we can't not talk about pandemic. Unfortunately, we are in it. And with the pandemic, more than ever before, people work from home and in-person interactions quite limited. So what would be the technology's role in this era of remote work? What would be the technology's role with diversity and inclusion initiatives? I guess Era, to go first.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's very pertinent, I think, for us, because really our mission at Workplace is to do two things. One really is to sort of, convert companies into communities. And the second really is the tool actually helps make remote working a seamless experience for everyone. So I think keeping those two in mind, we've actually had some specific features that we launched in the last 1 year or so in order to sort of, address more generally the diversity initiatives. So maybe I'll give you a couple of examples. One of my personal favorite, to be honest, is what we call the balance bot. Which is automatically by default turned on for everybody in the company. And really what it does is it only gives you a delayed or a silent notification for any pings that you get after office hours. So in some way, shape or form, it helps set the expectations for everybody, because we do have this unfortunate burden of always wanting to be switched on in this new world. And I think that's how technology has really helped. So that's one of my personal favorite. The other one that we've actually specifically built within the product is to address the needs of the frontline workers, which, as we all can imagine, are probably doing a lot more than anyone else, really. And so as an example, we have a feature called Areas, which really sort of groups frontline workers based on the region or the department that they belong to, and customizes the experience that they have. So that, all the UK employees, say in a particular department, are receiving a very specific pop-up, which is different from what people in Brazil receive. Right. And again, this is a conscious effort to say that, you are making the information catered to that particular, address group, and also preventing them from noise, right, which is not relevant to them, because you're bound to actually get a lot more information these days. So those are just some of the examples in which I think the technology has really helped in just more broadly, like making it an inclusive work environment for everyone.
Right. Thank you. Christine.
That's really incredible. I'd love to talk to you after. For us, Workplace has been the vehicle, obviously, when we all got pushed home, to communicate. And so what we found, particularly for our diversity and inclusion committee, they really launched on to using Workplace. And so, one of the things they started to do was showcase people so people could get to know different people, because we were onboarding new people. And we love books, music, films, so, best food. So we made it really fun. But then obviously there's the piece that isn't so fun about diversity and inclusion, which is all of the news in the world. So they've done an amazing job of curating, sharing, in the know, what do you need to know, launching small groups where people could share, find safe spaces, connect with each other. And so for us, that's where technology has played a great role in continuing conversations, continuing education and self-awareness, as well as just showcasing the positive things that we're doing around diversity and inclusion. So it's been, that's the main vehicle we've had, and it's kept the committee going when they couldn't do a lot of things in person.
Right. Thank you. Mandy.
Yeah, I love hearing all the answers. The technology side is the piece that I've been most encouraged about, I think, over this last year, because there's just been so much progress in an effort to keep us connected, right? Because I think we all want to preserve our cultures and make sure that we're continuing to move towards making this inclusive environment where everybody gets to participate and there's accessibility for everyone across the organization. And so being able to create additional communities and provide a safe way for people to communicate, and then allowing for people to communicate with people that maybe they don't normally work with and go across those lines, I think has been really helpful. I lead the training department, and so we all had to make the shift from instructor-led in-person classroom training to all virtual, which was tremendous because we were able to reach additional people that maybe we don't normally get to reach as much. But technology was key in making sure that we could continue to have a safe environment, like you mentioned, Christine, and pulling people into breakout rooms and allowing for some meaningful dialogue, where we aren't limited anymore by location and department and functional area. It just gives us a way to create more community for that idea sharing.
Right. Yes. At least the pandemic didn't happen like 20 years ago, right? At least.
Yes, thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah. Great, thank you very much. So now let's talk about gender gap with pay. It seems like research shows the gap is still there. About 82 cents women make for every dollar that men makes, and the gap is even bigger for more marginalized groups, women. So would there be any concrete tips or suggestions that you have for individuals and also leaders? Christine.
This is a tough question. I told Mihan that I thought some of the questions were hard. So I actually wrote notes because I'm pretty passionate about this. So, as women and as individuals, know your worth, advocate, be part of networks, pay attention to what jobs, when they're posted, what the starting salaries are, look into the industries. Understand what industries pay, understand how industries treat women and what progression looks like. Whatever you do in advocating for yourself, be factual. Pay is an emotional conversation. It's an emotional conversation for you, for your boss, for your organization. If you know your facts and stay factual and try not to go down the emotional area, you will see that you'll have perhaps a better outcome. And I think for leaders and managers, here's what I would say, and organizations. In Ontario, we have pay equity. So I feel very confident about how our structure is, and it meets all the tests. Certain countries, certain provinces, states, parts of the world have it and others don't. But leaders need to pay attention. They need to be on top of pay. Jobs are changing really quickly, and especially during the pandemic. So don't let your talent go. figure out how to have those conversations, stay on top of what's changing, look at the market rates, push your HR people if you have to, and pay people their worth. And so that's the advice I would give. And it's the advice I've taken for myself and for many women over many years of working.
Oh, thank you. Very powerful. Very powerful. Okay, Mandy.
Yeah, that was super great. Thanks for sharing that. I think my initial thought was similar, in that I think that sometimes females, myself included, have a hard time advocating for ourselves. I think we can benefit from partnering with female and male colleagues who really do a great job at communicating their worth and their value and their accomplishments. I know for myself, it can become a fine line, right? Where you don't want to be boastful, and you don't want to take credit for your team's work solely. And so it becomes that fine line. And I think we could do a better job. I know I can do a better job of that. I think it's important for us, and this isn't just around this topic, but just in general, to get comfortable being uncomfortable sometimes, right? Around all kinds of things. But I think this is an area where we have to be comfortable having the conversations, and being able to go in without emotion. I think is a great point of just stating the facts and the contributions that you're making to the organizations. On a kind of functional standpoint, one of the things that we do, and I think it helps, it doesn't mean that I'm saying that we have everything figured out, but I think it definitely helps, is we have our job descriptions that we go through and we build out, and there's additional questions around decision making, and becomes this big thing. But those are sent out to a third party company to, we call it grading, to come back with what is the appropriate range for this role in this community, and compare it nationally as well. So it helps to take some of the questioning out. I'm not, as a leader, deciding what someone I hire should make. We have some guidelines that at least help make sure that we're in alignment. And I think periodically those things get regraded. And I think that's important too, because roles change. I'm sure we all know we pick up additional duties and functions change. So I think rechecking those things periodically is important as well.
Oh, great. Thank you. Era.
Wow, these are such great points. I think for me, the only thing I will probably add is for individuals, honestly, if you have access to data, because many companies have to sort of, reveal what the gender pay gap is, use it. Use it to make it an explicit conversation, right? Whether it is a new job that you're recruiting for, or even an existing job at a higher sort of, a level or a pay raise, ask the question that, am I actually keeping the gender pay gap in mind? Getting paid, is my pay reflective of what, an equivalent male colleague would make at this level? And if data isn't accessible, then as you both mentioned, don't shy away from negotiating. Because I think I've felt this in the early days of my career, where I took what was given without asking the questions. And I'll be honest with you, when I went up the ranks, I realized that I was still lagging behind, because I never asked that question from the get-go. So now when I'm hiring women, or even when I'm sort of, promoting women within the team, like, I actually remind them that this is what I do. So I will ask you to make sure you ask me that hard question. If not, then I obviously will be proactive as much as I can, but there's only so much you can do if you can't sort of control it from your side. So that's what my advice to individuals would be. From a leadership perspective, I think I would say look beyond the averages, right? And by that I mean that, yes, there is a 5% pay gap at an org level, but when you really look deeply at a particular level, or at a functional level, there would be stark differences, especially because we may be hiring a lot more women at entry level versus women at the top. And I think that's something that we'll address later in the session anyway. So I think it's important that we have a deep understanding of the issue, as opposed to just looking at the averages. And then the solution obviously will not come overnight. But as long as we are aware where to address it, I think this is where I think companies are getting very open to addressing the gaps. But it's important as leaders for us to know where the gaps lie. Yeah, so that's what I would add.
Yes, this conversation is very, very valuable. I'm sure our attendees are taking lots of notes. Okay, I'm gonna listen to this recording later because now I cannot write down notes. I'm going to listen again and write down notes. Okay, so yes, like Era talked about the gender gap in leadership. Yes, that's also there. It is very real. So one study that I recently looked up preparing for this webinar specifically, according to McKinsey and Leanin.org, there was some improvement from 2015 to 2020. So senior VP level, now it is 28% women are representing. It used to be 23%. C-suite, now it is 21%, used to be 17. But still, women are dramatically underrepresented. So suggestions, tips, please. Yeah, Mandy.
Yeah, I've been really lucky. So I've worked for SWC for 20 years, and for as long as I can remember, we've had a pretty good balance. I'm not suggesting again that we're perfect and we figured everything out, but over 40% of our executive management team is female, and when we look at the organization as a whole, right at 50%, a little over 50% of supervisors and above are female. And I think that that helps from day one. When I came in, I could look around and see that there were other females in leadership roles. And so I think even going back to the previous conversation, I think, advocating for yourself and taking on those challenges and supporting one another to create an environment where those who come behind us also see that there's a path for themselves to be successful. And I think, if you're somebody when you find yourself looking for new opportunities, I think it's important to look at the organization and take the time. We research these organizations right before we go and interview or apply, but take a look at what the makeup is of their leadership and ask the questions so that you know exactly what kind of an environment you're getting into. And if it's one that will support you to continue your career growth. I think, we know that organizations that have females in their executive leadership tend to be better with handling risk, better at handling crisis, and are, I think, 22% more profitable, I think was the last study that I saw. So we know it's good for business. But it also, I think, at some point needs to become good for business in retaining employees, because people can be more selective about where they choose to work.
True, very true. Era.
Yeah, so on point. I think it goes back to what I said in the beginning, right? For me, if we know that we are underrepresented, then all the more the recruiting pipelines need to over-index on the number of women that they are sourcing for every damn position, right? So that is something that should be part of pretty much policies at the recruitment level. And then I completely agree with you, Mandy, because ultimately it's not just about bringing in more women. Actually, where we lose out is in sort of, growing, keeping and retaining them. And I think that really comes down to a couple of things, which is really that the culture of inclusion and the women feeling that yes, that they can progress their careers but also be themselves is super important. And I think that has to come from the top down. I don't see how else you can actually enforce that, if you will. And then I would say in some ways the pandemic really has created a wonderful opportunity, right, where lots of companies are making a very conscious effort towards creating a flexible and a more empathetic workplace, which, I'll be honest with you, will work wonders for both men and women. So it's not something you have to do just for women, but for me personally, I think that has been probably the biggest opportunity that the crisis has brought. So that's what I would add.
Thank you, Era. Christine.
I'll jump on that point. I think it's about the attraction and retention, and then what is a female-friendly or working parent-friendly work environment. So, I've seen a lot of talented people over the years who they get to a point in their career, and then things like having families changes for what they want to do. and some of them don't really want to leave, but there's choices. So when I think about it, I think about, you know, organizations, with the pandemic, you know, flexible hours, remote work for periods of time now. We know it works. Where possible, you know, supporting daycare, childcare subsidies. Think about, you know, your leave policies and top up, right? Topping up maternity, which is something we happen to do in Canada. Obviously, working parent networks, women's networks, investing in women's development training, and providing them coaches and mentors. And some of the best coaches and mentors are actually men, because it helps further them. So those are some of the additional things I would add to what Mandy and Ever said.
Great, thank you. We have just 5 minutes left, and I have so many more questions to ask, but we just have 5 more minutes. So one question that I do want to ask is, what will be our male colleagues' role? I mean, I think we definitely need to work together. So what will be the role that they can play? Given that we have just 4 minutes, who would like to jump on, please?
I can go first if you want.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, first of all, include and sponsor more women, goes without saying, right? And then I would say in some way, the allyship now actually also requires men and women, I guess, to understand really how this remote working has had a very deep impact on how women actually have to adjust, right? Because they actually have to play two roles. I mean, I won't go into the details of that, but that's what my day looks like. And spending time with my daughter really is putting her to bed before I can log on and do like San Francisco hours, right? So two things: A, understanding why this pandemic has really impacted us in a unique way, and B, then moderating some of your ways in which you were being allies to women and adapting them to remote work. So as an example, something that my manager does a great job of, he always gives me the first opportunity, you know, to speak up in a virtual meeting, because very often, maybe in live meetings as well, you know, people with the loudest or the quickest response have the majority mind share. And I can't remember a single instance when he hasn't like told me to go first. And that's really nice, right? And then the second thing which I try to do is with him is always sort of, you know, equally divide the virtual office homework. Obviously, nothing beats meeting our teams in person, but we now do virtual socials every quarter, and I run a global team. So he is the first to, you know, divide the responsibility of running the North America and the LATAM socials, because they are more friendly to his time, and I run the APAC and EMEA ones. So I think those small things really make a difference, and you know, mentally I feel more secure and definitely more empowered, even though I'm actually taking care of 2 out of the 4 regions when it comes to social catch-ups. But that's really helped. Over
Thank
to you
you.
both.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Christy?
think acknowledging that there's still work to be done is where I think there can be some help. We've made progress, and that can be encouraging, but we're not done yet. It's not where it needs to be yet, and so acknowledging that, I think, helps. And I think, you know, speaking up, if you're in an environment or you're in a situation where perhaps you're hearing things that are not appropriate, whether they're jokes and they're meant intentionally to silence or keep anyone from being able to actively participate in contributing to the organization, say something. You're in a better position oftentimes to be able to say, even gently, that's not okay, and this is why it's not okay, and take those opportunities to help make it safer for everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just jump in there. I'm in the industry of words, so words are really powerful and very meaningful. So, and Mandy, you're so bang on. It's about being able to express when something's not quite on point. So, and I too am fortunate that I have a male leader who tries to put me first. gives me the airtime, and is a wonderful partner, from an HR perspective as well. So, so role modeling wherever possible for others. He does a great job of that. So that helps, but we have a long way to go.
Thank you very much. Okay, so noon. Love to continue the conversation, but yeah, it is noon. And any other questions that from the attendees that we couldn't address, we will do our best to address them in our LinkedIn event group. So that way you can still go there and check out the resources and continue to take actions and learn. Thank you very much again, all the panelists. It's my pleasure to hosting you. Thank you. And thank you for being such an inspiration and leading us to, I guess, more equitable future. Thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
guys.
day.
Thank you. Bye-bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Bye.